We're so excited to talk to you about this because you've got a whole lot going on in a very little bit of time. So this is a good time to be you, but also a very busy time.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been a whirlwind, but it's been super fun just kind of having all these opportunities and working with, Mark Waters on these films and yeah, just being able to write, which I feel so fortunate that I'm able to do.
Yeah, and it definitely is so much fun, but it's also sort of your calling, and it's a gift that you have. And when did you first realize that you had this gift?
Well, I've been playing piano and cello since I was a young kid, and I started composing at a very young age, around 7. And I was the youngest child of kind of a big family, and so I could disappear into this small room in my house with this like very old dingy upright that was like passed down from my grandmother, and I would like stay in that room for hours. And I eventually got a little bit bored of the classical music canon that I was supposed to be practicing, and I started kind of like touring around. My dad had given me manuscript paper, and so yeah, I kind of started composing at a very young age. It was nothing good, but um, I was kind of fortunate to have that like space as a kid, and my mom and dad kind of let me foster that. And yeah, I continued to play a lot of classical piano and cello throughout my years, and kind of compose on the side. And after performing a ton as a classical musician, I kind of realized I actually kind of like being behind the scenes. I'm not as much of a performer at heart, and I really just love writing music. And so I kind of pivoted a bit more and said, I'm going to focus on composing, full force and yeah, see where it takes me. And hopefully, kind of all the music I studied and learned it's all floating around there. It's hopefully a bit in my musical DNA. But yeah, just very lucky to have been able to study music kind of formally and have that education and then kind of find my compositional voice as I kind of got older and had like learned a lot of different kinds of music. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, so none of your friends or family were surprised when you became the youngest composer to score a film, right?
Well, I mean I'm still just kind of in awe of how fortunate and kind of just lucky I've been and working with Mark at a young age. I kind of like grew up watching his movies,
Mhm.
I saw his movies when I was a very young kid. So um yeah, everyone has been very supportive, which has been nice.
Yeah, that's so cool, and of course, being so accessible, the films on Netflix that makes things a whole lot better. I'm sure probably everybody's caught these movies, and then they're so much fun too. They're sweet movies, right?
Yeah, no, it's so funny. I was on the phone with my accountant the other day, and he's like, "Oh, what movies have you worked on?" He's like, "Oh, I've watched both," and he's like, you know, a man with kids, so it's kind
Yeah.
of funny that he had just casually seen both. But it's great, that's on a platform that a lot of people have access to, and just has kind of reached a lot of people, which is nice.
hmm So how does that work for you, or at least in these cases? Did you get scenes, or did you just get a script, or did you get the full movie and they go, okay, go?
Yeah, so I worked with Mark Waters on his last Netflix film as well, Mother of the Bride. And that one I had gotten through kind of a pitch, and he's just like, I just want to hear music, and he liked my music kind of it fortuitously happened that way, which it's kind of rare just for things to fall into place like that. And that's how I met him. And we worked together on that film. So when it came to this next film, he called me early and was like, "Hey, I'm shooting this next film also with Netflix in Italy, and I'd love for you to be a part of it. I kind of liked, our rapport and our relationship on Mother of the Bride and how that kind of all turned out score wise. This film's a little different. Um, it's set in Italy and it's a little bit less comedy. It's a little bit has a little bit more of that like heartfelt of the rom-com genre as opposed to the, slapstick comedy, physical comedy type aspect. And that's kind of how I first heard about it. He sent me this script and we kind of went from there. I saw, pictures of him filming. He kind of like updated me as it went along. And then, when we got the cut, he showed me the director's cut and he's like, start brainstorming some ideas. And, you know, it was pretty, I guess, like traditional in terms of the process of scoring. I didn't start super early, but I kind of knew what the script was. I knew what it was kind of going to look like, and I had some ideas brewing, but kind of got into the nitty-gritty once we had the spotting session and kind of got into it with the lock cut.
Ah, that's so cool. Well, and that story is inspirational, I think, to people, that you can, grow up with music and then and watch someone's movies and then be scoring them, and not even, wait until you have this long career to do it. And so what kind of advice would you give to kids that are coming up behind you that they're want to follow in your footsteps?
Oh, that's so kind of you. And yeah, I think yeah, it is just kind of a whirlwind journey. And I would say always just kind of feed your curiosity. I guess it's kind of generic, but I think, like I said, kind of being a young kid and I had a lot of time just to kind of occupy with myself and my own thoughts. I had this interest in music, and my parents kind of encouraged me to kind of like sit in the room for multiple hours and write or practice music. And that became something that became very encouraged, even though, it's kind of an odd thing to like sit for a child to sit in a room and kind of um, dabble at something for that long. But I think that is fully why I kind of became so invested in music and became like became naturally curious about composing and improvising. After I kind of learned some classical music, I became curious about jazz, and then I became curious about production because that was something that had never really been a part of like my musical journey up until then. So I think it's really about kind of having these curiosities and then feeding them kind of and really just like letting yourself like dig into those little holes of the things that inspire you or the things that kind of yeah make you curious, I guess. But
Yeah.
I'm far too young for people to be taking my advice yet.
No, you're obviously on the right path. It's interesting. My co-host is Drew Pearson, one of our great Dallas Cowboys, and he caught the Hail Mary, went in the Hall of Fame. And even if you're not familiar, the term Hail Mary is something that we all know now. It's kind of just throw Hail Mary, gotta do it. And so we love to ask people their Hail Mary moment, which is that moment in their life or career where they just had to go for it. It worked out for them. What do you suppose that was for you?
I don't quite know if I've had a Hail Mary moment
Yeah,
yet.
maybe not.
I think, with every project, I've tried to push it to however best I can make the project with the score and kind of how best the score can be in service of the film. And I think, with the genres I've worked in and just any film, there's obviously some creative constraints, there's some creative boundaries, but there's also room for maybe something to be a little bit out of the box. And so I guess I wouldn't call this my Hail Mary moments by any means. But it's kind of finding that little creativity that's like a step outside that maybe you wouldn't ordinarily think that that would work with the picture, or maybe a kind of an instrument or yeah, an approach that's like maybe on first reading the scene could go this way, but what if we try something that's maybe not so direct with what's happening in the scene? I guess there's a little like nuances in which you just try to push it a little bit further than something someone might expect. But I don't think I quite have had a Hail Mary moment yet in my career, but hopefully when I do, I'll feel it and I'll be like that's the moment. But
Yeah, it's coming for sure. Well,
well,
and part of that is that success mindset that we tell ourselves. You because as creative types, we're notoriously hard on ourselves. So is there something you tell yourself that keeps you on the right path even when things are tough or maybe the notes are not coming?
yeah, I think it's tricky, obviously, just being
Yeah,
everybody creative. It's, some days you have a million ideas and some days you feel like you have two and they're both bad. I think for me, one thing that has been very helpful is um, because I kind of started off as a pianist and a cellist and kind of a live musician. I'm used to kind of doing things a million times and then adjusting and course correcting, if that makes sense. So
Mhm.
I kind of have like an idea or a melody that's not working, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna toss it out. I improvise a new thing, you know? And because improvisation, kind of like being at the keyboard and feeling like actually physically playing on these instruments is kind of an ingrained part of my compositional process. I think that's one thing that has been helpful is like not being ultra precious with any one idea if it's kind of not working. Obviously, sometimes it's easy to get attached and it's like maybe you get a note on something, but then you kind of have to sit with yourself again and go, well, okay, just let's just keep trying things, as opposed to making one thing that's half working, like kind of shoving it into something that maybe is never going to perfectly work, I guess. So yeah, I think that has been helpful. It's just like that improvisational mindset where it's like, okay, I can just come up with another idea that might work better. Or like, what about the idea is not working? Let's just try something else. Let's improvise. Let's change this up a bit. And I think that has been helpful. But like anyone else, I have days where I'm like, I just need to take like a 10-minute walk and then I'll feel much better kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, after this, I can't wait to see what you got next for us. What do you have coming up or that you're working on right now?
Yeah, there's nothing concrete that I can announce
Yeah.
yet. But I've been kind of lucky to work in this genre of comedy and I've done some horror as well. And I think those two genres have been very fun for me to kind of like, start my career off in a sense, just because they're so kind of like crucial for learning the craft of film scoring, if that makes sense. Some of it's very frame specific or it kind of teaches you how to read a scene very well and, understanding the nuances of an acting performance, like a look or, exactly what you might think. But kind of excited to explore some other genres and yeah, just kind of, yeah, keep hopefully going down this pathway if I'm lucky enough.
Yeah, of course. And then the last thing with both these films, I know that probably working on the films is somewhat of a soul lonely thing that you have to do yourself. But in that you find special moments that I think you'll probably always remember for both of the films. Do you have a certain moment or a certain scene that you're just working on, going, "Oh, I got this"?
Yeah, well, there's this one, I'm just thinking of this one scene in La Dolce Villa. I'm not sure if you've
Yeah.
seen all the scenes through, but there's a scene where they're kind of running through a hotel and it's kind of like a fun montagey type scene. Not really a montage, but it's just like a fun sequence. And I remember it's like the director Mark wanted something that was kind of fun, maybe like slightly 1960s inspired. It was going to be a little bit different than the rest of the score, but that was kind of the point. It just wanted to feel like this kind of like highlight, and the music was going to be kind of played loud and they're going to be running around. And almost kind of the entirety of that was improvised. Like I was just at my keyboard, sitting, like a typical day like today, sitting in this chair like I always am. And I was like, okay, let me kind of put down a groove, like a bass line and a drum pattern. And then the rest was just improvised. And those were the lines that ended up being like officially recorded. It was just like me sitting at this improvising line by line. Like I'll do the keys part. Like what do we want the guitar part to be? So that was kind of fun. And that was one of the cues that I came together super fast. I sent it off. He's like, that's it.
Yeah.
So not every cue is like that, but that was a fun one because it kind of just came naturally almost.
That's so cool. Well, those are the great memories that you'll take with you, and of course, there's so many ahead. But we just had to talk to you and see who this great newer artist to us is,
Oh,
and just see what you got going on. And we're so proud of everything that you've done, and can't wait to see what you got next for us.
oh, well, thank you so, so much. And thanks so much for making the time to chat with me. It's so great meeting you.
Absolutely, you too. I look forward to talking again soon.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, bye bye.